Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, brothers and sisters, to lesson number 4. For those of you who are following the series, alhamdulillah, so far we are still looking closely at the jumla fi'liya or the verbal sentence. Today's lesson is about focusing on the object. We have already mentioned this many times, even going back from book 1. But today in this lesson, inshallah, we're going to take a comprehensive look at this topic, the object, in particular the direct object. We're also going to take a look at the two types of verbs in Arabic, those that need an object to complete the meaning and those that don't. And of course, we will look at situations where you can have more than one direct object. And so far, we have been dealing with the object, which is a noun. We are going to introduce something new in this lesson, and we're going to look at the object being a pronoun. We will also, inshallah, continue to look at the use of phrases in place of the object, and we will briefly look at the types of object apart from the direct object, which is the main lesson also. So inshallah ta'ala, by the end of the lesson, you will have a lot clearer understanding of the formation of jumla fi'liya, rules related to it, how to identify its parts, and more importantly, inshallah, when you see a piece of text within the Qur'an or the hadith, you should be in a position to far better understand it and also translate it correctly. We have a lot to cover, so let's begin with the blessed name of Allah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Seeking His help and His mercy, we make dua. Rabbi zidni ilma. O my Lord, increase me in knowledge. Quick review of the map of the jumla fi'liya. As you already know, this map, inshallah, should be very familiar with it. That in a jumla fi'liya, two of the most essential components are the verb itself, which is called fa'ilun or al-fa'lu, the verb, and then we have the doer of the verb. We've already covered this in detail. The doer can be an internal pronoun which is embedded in the verb itself. So there are 14 sigha, each one has an embedded pronoun, or it can be an external noun that comes after. And of course, again, I remind you, external noun come only after number 1 and number 4, the fa'ala and the fa'alat version, nasara, nasarat. And this is where we've left in the last lesson and in detail, and I'm confident and hopeful that inshallah ta'ala, if you've done the lesson properly and went through the notes, you should be now 100% familiar with these two concepts. Now that leaves the third component of a verbal sentence. And again, please note, not all verbal sentences will have a maf'ul, direct object, but where there is a direct object, the direct object again can also be a pronoun. We have or a noun. Pronoun or a noun. And this is what we're going to be mastering in this lesson, inshallah. So the idea of the doer, as you know, is the one who does the verb, and the object one is the one who receives the action in the verb. And that can either be a noun or a pronoun. By noun, I mean a name of a thing, a person, place, etc. And of course, it can be more than that. And we'll be looking at all of these components in this lesson, inshallah. Grammatical term, al-maf'ul bihi, which you see here, it refers to the object in a verbal sentence. And this object is the entity, the person or the thing that directly receives the action in the verb. So if you have a verb and then you have the ask action question, who or what received this action in relation to the verb, then you get the answer what the object is. Of course, in English, it's very easy for us. We have the subject always coming first. So let me circle that. The subject, we got the subject here. We have a lot. In English, the subject comes first. In Arabic, as you know, we've already seen in the previous, we can completely move the words around. So if we have the verb in the middle here, so the boy ate. What did he eat? And that's the answer to the direct object. She helped. Who or what did she help? The boy. And then he helped you. So you can see here the object can be a noun, as in the first two example, or a pronoun. We do the same thing in Arabic. But in Arabic, there is some differences between the way this is done. And that's what we're going to be looking at in detail, inshallah ta'ala. So in simple terms, when I say al-maf'ul or maf'ulun bihi or al-maf'ulu bihi, means one is indefinite, the other is definite. The direct object or a direct object, it's the one that receives the action, directly receives the action mentioned in the verb. From what we have covered so far, alhamdulillah, including what we covered in book 1 and the lessons here, you should be able to tell me the translation of these 3 relatively easily. You should also be able to tell me which one's the verb, even though I've colored the verb in red for you, which is the ism, and not only that, which one is doing the action, which one's receiving the action. So let's illustrate for one more example, inshallah ta'ala, to make these points as live examples rather than just theory. So in the first one, I have the word daraba. For those of you who don't know what that means he struck. So he hit or he struck, whichever translation you prefer. Daraba. And then after that, I have a noun, an ism, which is rafa. I am sure you can tell that. And we have one here, which is nasb. So the rafa is always the doer. And of course, the nasb is object. So we're going to look at this structure. If there's nothing else in the sentence, we can analyze that so far very easily. That is my verb. That is my doer of the verb. And that is the object. And so therefore, the object is maf'ulun bihi, the object. So the one that receives the action of hitting, to be hit, is Hamid, and the one who did the action is Zaid. So I will translate this as Zaid hit Hamid. I hope you can read that, inshallah. Bit of a scribble on the screen. Next we have Daraba Zaidan Hamidun. Again, you easily can identify that this is nasab and this is rafa. So Hamid is doing the action now. So we have the fa'ilun, we have the maf'ulun bihi, and we have the fa'il. So you can see here I moved the grammatical parts around. Here the fa'il, then the maf'ul, which is the standard order. Here I move the order around, but essentially, the grammatically speaking is still the same points because of the nasab and rafa endings on those two. So the translation of this will be Hamid hit Zaid. How do I know who's doing what? Who's receiving, who's doing? Based on the i'rab, which is again the subject of book 1, where we went through this in detail. So the standard order that you see here, we have the verb. Of course, Arabic is written that way, so I'll go in this way, this order. Verb, doer, and object. That's the standard order of the sentence. But here, of course, I have moved things around. I have the verb, I have the object, then I have the doer. And that is perfectly allowed in Arabic. And of course, this is done for many, many reasons. One of them could be for emphasis and also for rhetoric and other reasons also. But we have something even more here. If you look at this one, Hamidan, this is nasab. Zaidun, rafa. Daraba in the middle. Now, if you said that this is a jumla ismiya, you and I would be wrong. Why? Because jumla ismiya, the mubtada will come first, normally. But here we have Hamidan. Mubtada has to be rafa. This is nasab. So what is this? So in grammar now we call this maf'ulun bihi, coming early. I'm going to look at this inshallah ta'ala. And then we have the verb fi'lun, and then we have the fa'ilun. So here what we've done is we've taken the object, brought it right to the front, but we still recognize it as the object, not the subject. Why? Because of the i'rab. So i'rab is nasab. It cannot be the subject or the doer in this case. So these are the things that you will see. So long as you're focused on what we've done and how we went through it in some logical order, inshallah, that you should not get confused at this stage. And of course, the last one you'll translate as Zaid hit Hamid. In English, the translation, you can't do much. But in Arabic here, I'm emphasizing the fact that Hamid was struck or hit. So I hope these 3 examples, inshallah ta'ala, tell you, which is the first point that I mentioned back in lesson number 1, that in Arabic, word order is not the most significant part of the sentence. More important is the i'rab to tell us what is going on within the sentence. Transitive and intransitive verbs. Sometimes you hear a terminology you've never heard before and completely throws you off. What do we mean by transitive and intransitive? If you ever studied English grammar, maybe you will know, but 99% of the English speakers, really, we won't know what these terms mean. And these terms often confuse people. A lot of people give up studying Arabic because of terminology. Trust me, you don't need to learn terminology. What you need to understand is what it represents. So instead of remembering all these English terms like transitive, intransitive, etc., let's just go quickly to the Arabic terminology and use them as our guide, but necessarily not even memorize the Arabic terminology, just understand what they mean. So in Arabic, the verbs can be divided into two categories. Those that need an object to complete their meaning, and those verbs that don't need the object to complete their meaning. So the lazim verb, or a verb that is lazim, does not need an object to complete the meaning. That's all I want you to remember. So there are certain verbs, and we've come across quite a few of them already, that do not have the action of the verb, I should say, is not impacting an external entity. And that's all we mean. So these verbs, they stand independently, and its action does not directly affect anyone or anything beyond the doer. So when I say I slept, there is no direct object there, or Maryam slept, or Hamid went, or she walked. Now you can add lots of bits to the sentence, like saying she walked by the park, she walked to the mosque. All of that is possible, but these are all additional information. They're not the ones receiving the action itself. And that's all it is, really not to need to think too much about it. All I need you to do is when you see a verb and you don't see the object afterwards, is possibly because it is a lazim verb and it does not require. So in these sentences, if we attempt to ask the question who or what, like we did in the previous one, when it comes to the doer, we say who did the action or what did the action. Have we answered that with the verb, and then we found our doer. Whereas in this case, we have to ask who or what received the action. Who or what received the action. If we can answer those questions, then there is an object there in the sentences. That's the simplest way to do it. So again, just to remind you, the actions of these verbs are confined to the doer, no direct object involved, and these sentences can exist in their complete form without any additional object. For instance, Hamid went is a complete sentence. And therefore we have here the verb, fa'ilun, but the maf'ulun bihi, not required. And that's all you need to remember about fi'lul lazim. And this is why you'll be surprised in Arabic, one word can make a complete sentence. Why? Because if it's a jumla fi'liya, for example, within that word itself, it will contain both the verb and the doer. Both the verb and the doer. So please pay attention to this. It's not that difficult, I hope, but most important is not to get confused and lost in the terminology. So lazim, all I mean is that it does not need a object. So some quick examples. ذهب زيد, complete sentence. فعل فاعل, we have our complete sentence. ذهبتن, you all female went. Now again, if you don't recognize this verb, go back and look at the 14 sigha that we did in the lesson 1 of book 2. So ذهبتن, you all female plural went. Again, you have to add these details in the translation if you want to give a full translation, because in English we have one you and in Arabic we have six of them to cover the variations in number and gender. So we have in there our fi'lun, fa'ilun, and tunna, of course, tunna representing that. So these are your lazim verbs. 4 examples very quickly to go through, inshallah, so I can illustrate what is going on. ذهبنا, again pay attention to na. Where is my doer? The na. Sigha number 14. خرج الطالب, خرج الطالب, the student left. Who's the doer? الطالب. Is there an object? No. Okay, دخلت, meaning it's a feminine. دخلت الطالبة, again this female student entered. And who's the doer? الطالبة. And جلس زيد, who sat? Zaid sat. So these 4 examples here, along with the others we've seen, now illustrate lazim verbs. And of course, if you now did what I advised you to do in lesson number 1 is to memorize the 14 sigha, make sure you can read them, write them down for 1 or 2 verbs, then these endings you'll be able to recognize are the internal doer pronoun. And again, it's been illustrated here for you. Muta'addi, the verbs that need an object. Muta'addi is the opposite of lazim, meaning they need an object to clarify the sentence. So we have here a transitive verb is a action word, meaning a verb, which directly affects an entity, a person, place, or thing. Let's look at some examples and hopefully, inshallah, the topic will make full sense to you. So when I say I ate the mango, it's very clear the object here is, of course, the mango. Who's doing the action? I. Now, if I just said I ate, there is a direct object involved. What did I eat or who did I eat? Okay, of course, I will not be eating a who, but this is just for illustrated examples, inshallah. I ate the mango. John kicked. What did John kick? The ball. So this is our object. Khadija taught. Who did Khadija taught or what did Khadija taught? So again, we got taught them. That is our object. Now, of course, in English is easy because of the word order structure in English, but in Arabic, the word order gets moved around. And therefore, we need to be able to recognize the object. And of course, object is mansoob. So these are the few points, inshallah ta'ala, which will help you remove confusion in your mind, because when we get to pronouns, we get into lots of confusion. People get confused, can't see where the pronouns are coming from. If you follow this method, inshallah, hopefully you will be fine. So what was eaten, what was kicked or who was kicked, what was hit or who was hit, who was taught, etc. will give us the answer to the object. So if there's an answer to this question, who or what received the action in the verb, then that verb is muta'addi or transitive. And that's all we need to know. And of course, in this sentence, I need fa'ilun, fa'ilun, and my maf'ulun bih. So I need both of them. I need all 3 of them together to form a complete sentence. Inshallah, these 4 illustrated examples on the screen will help you reinforce the knowledge. I strongly advise you to rewrite these in your own notebook. Even having them in the book is not going to help you as much as rewriting them in your notebook, understanding what is going on. I'll go through it very quickly, inshallah ta'ala. Basically, the most important principle, as you know already, that the object is always mansoob, nasb. So, nasb. And the doer is rafa. Now, the order can be moved around. The standard order, Arabic, of course, goes this way. If you remember video, V, D, O. Verb, doer, object. But this does not always happen. This is the standard. When you move things around, you do it for many reasons, nuanced reasons, but these are could be for emphasis, to bring something forward, etc. And it will be looked at in more context, inshallah. But for now, we have an example here, sami'a. Of course, with sami'a, you will say the doer is huwa. But because we have an external doer outside, which is rafa, inshallah, that's very clear for you, rafa. So we have so saying he did the action in the verb. We say Hamid heard. Sami'a means to hear or to listen. He heard. What did he hear? And again, that's the question I told you about earlier. Al-adhana, he heard the adhan. So Hamid heard the adhan. In the second example, we have qara'tu. Now, here is a classic example where the doer now is embedded within the verb. It is not mustatir, so it is tu, and the tu means ana. Who read? I read. Qara'a is the original verb. Qara'at is feminine, and qara'tu, I read. Okay, so inshallah, this is from the conjugation of first lesson of this book, inshallah. So I read. The object is, of course, al-Qur'ana. So you can see here, the verb and the doer are both there in the same word, and here the object is outside. Third example, nasarat, and again, you now should be able to recognize this is feminine. There is a here in the embedded within the verb itself. And who did the action of helping? Of course, Fatimatu, we have here, which is rafa. So that is our doer. Okay, and the object is here, al-mu'allimatayni. Now this, of course, you know from book 1, lesson 4, that this is a dual. Dual end with ani in rafa, aini in nasab or jar. Here, of course, it has to be nothing but nasab. Why? Because of the structure, there's nothing else there. So we know that this is nasab. So the translation is Fatima helped the 2 teachers. Okay, 2 female teachers. Here we have nasara, means he helped. If I had afterward al-muslimuna, the translation would be the Muslims helped. But I have al-muslimina. This is, of course, nasab or jar. There is no reason for it to be jar. We can exclude that completely. We know for certain that this is nasab. Why is it nasab? It's the object. What is the object? Al-muslimina, meaning the Muslims. So this is our object. And of course, we have the word huwa, which is mustatir, our doer. And therefore, there is no doer outside. We translate, he helped the Muslim. Yes, I do appreciate this is a very long way of going around things. For those of you who already studied grammar, this is second nature. But for those of you who are following the series, it's important that you go slowly so that you make sure you understand. Because when you get to text that you're not familiar with, you need to go through this sort of logic. Of course, it will become instant once you've done it a couple of times. So if you're finding the videos a bit slow, please take your time, pause the bits or forward the bits that are not relevant to you. I'll try to put timestamps appropriately here, but going through the example is very, very important. And later on, again, I'm just giving my personal experience. When I did Arabic grammar many times, started, stopped, went through all this so many times, failed until I really, stuck my head down and went through it in detail. And I struggle with this stuff. Particularly when there is 2 pronouns, you don't know who's done what and so on. It was very confusing for me. And alhamdulillah, going through this process, it became a lot easier. So I'm going through it slowly for your benefit, inshallah ta'ala. And again, you're welcome to give me feedback on how you're finding it. Is it too slow, too fast, whatever. Any feedback you do, I'll try to improve in the forthcoming lessons, inshallah ta'ala. But please don't watch these videos just as grammar lessons. For any other reason but to learn, and make sure that you practice whatever I'm showing. Go through it, understand it. I'm happy to answer any questions related to the lessons only, please, inshallah ta'ala. So let's move on, inshallah. We've looked at the doer and the object being different positions in the sentence, in terms of order. We're going to look at now a situation where the object comes first. So the object coming early. Maf'ulun bihi muqaddam. If you look at the 2 examples on the screen, both of them are translated exactly the same in English. I'm sure, alhamdulillah, by now you know that this is rafa and this is nasab. So you can tell the student read the book. Qara'a, with the verb we've already done. But in the second example, I have the same translation in English, but we have the nasab noun coming first, the verb coming after, and the rafa noun coming after that. So this is the order we're going through. So instead of having fi, di, o as we have it here, we got the o, and we got the v, and we got the d afterwards. So what's happened here? Complete moving of the word order. So what have I done? I've taken the object early, and this is perfectly allowed in Arabic. So let's quickly go through the labeling. Fi'lun, fa'ilun, maf'ulun bih. Now the next one, maf'ulun bihi muqaddam. Please note this term, coming early, coming before. Verb, fa'ilun, and of course the fa'ilun coming after. In English, the translation is exactly the same. In Arabic, there is a nuanced difference in the meaning, but as far as the English translation is concerned, it will translate it exactly the same. So what is going on? This sentence follows the structure of the maf'ul bihi muqaddam coming first. And this is this sentence here is referring to, where the object is placed before the verb for emphasis or rhetorical reasons. Rhetoric. Again, you see it in English poetry, different order, repetition, and all of these things are deployed. So this is rhetoric, to make the text for beautification, for emphasis, all of these reasons are there. So of course, in the context, we'll be able to tell this stuff. So the reason why we bring the object first, and it is allowed in Arabic, is because of the emphasis part or rhetorical purposes within the text itself. Now, what is important for you and I to note is the point that I said right at the beginning in book 1. I mentioned that in Arabic, word order is not as important as i'rab. It is the i'rab that will dictate for us who the doer, who the object, and all the other roles within the sentences, and it will make it clear. And this is a very beautiful illustrated example of where we began our journey. Yes, it's been a good journey, alhamdulillah. And we got to book 2, we are on lesson number 4, but we are seeing now the nuanced difference between them. So the literally in English translation with the book read the student. If I put the in that word order, but that of course is not correct. So rather we should say the student read the book. So while the sentence follows the non-standard word order, al-kitaba qara'a at-talibu, what is going on? It is grammatically correct and conveys the meaning the student read the book. With the object, the book being emphasized or highlighted by its placement before the verb. And that's all we are doing. We're emphasizing on the book itself. Maybe I want to surprise you. For example, I want to say the student's very young. Let's say is a very, a primary school, but he's reading a very advanced level book. I want to emphasize that. So I'm telling somebody the book the student read, in that sort of way, and bring the book first. So this is an example of how emphasis can be done. Something surprising, something important, something significant. This book, you wouldn't expect that student to read, but he's read it, right? And he understood it. So I would put in that sentence, I would put that first so the readers immediately know there's something surprising, something different. So these are additional meaning which is often lost in translation because you can't really translate this. And this is why when we read the Quranic text, it's better for us to focus and learn the language to try and understand the more deeper meaning within the text than what a straight, dry translation can give us. Of course, the translators of the Qur'an will always deploy many, many techniques in order to get the message as best as they can to us, but it is never as good as the original, or never as exact as the original, I should say, because in the language, in Arabic itself, there will be lots. So for that, you go to tafsir and other details. So again, I'm just encouraging you just to learn this simple stuff first very well so you can recognize the more complex stuff. 2 more examples of exactly the same thing. Here, as you can see, Zaydan has been brought first. Al-Mu'allima has been brought first. And the translation, Maryam helped Zayd. Of course, exactly the same. But here, Zayd is coming first for emphasis. And again, these 2 boxes are explaining what is going on for you. So the first box has the doer. 2 more next box has the object. And of course, Rafa and Nasab is your friend to help you recognize what is going on. So Maryam helped Zayd. The student helped the teacher. The student helped the teacher. Again, for emphasis, I'm bringing it first. 2 more sentences with more than one object. We looked at in situations where we have a verb that requires an object, but there are certain verbs that require more than one object. And here is one example. Bilal knew that Hamid was a scholar. In order to say this in Arabic, I can do it by using 2 objects. First of all, alima, of course, you can see is the verb to know, or he knew. So you can see here alima first, Bilalun. So again, doer. Bilal knew. Hamidan, that Hamid. So in English, I have to add the preposition to make sense. So this is an additional word. That Hamid, and of course, because it is the past tense, I'll translate was a aliman, a scholar. So we have fa'ilun, maf'ulun bihi, and fa'ilun in the middle there, and maf'ulun bihi number 1, and maf'ulun bihi number 2. And this is not uncommon. There are certain verbs that require 2. There are ones that can have up to 3, but most common you'll see, or more likely you'll see the 2. So I've included this as an example. So here, another 2 examples for you using Quranic text. جَعَلَ اللَّهُ مُحَمَّدًا رَسُولًا. I don't mean verses from Quran, I mean the wording or vocabulary from Quran. So جَعَلَ اللَّهُ مُحَمَّدًا رَسُولًا. Allah made Muhammad a messenger. So the first maf'ul is Muhammadan, second Rasulan. So I hope this is clear for you. جَعَلَ اللَّهُ الْأَرْضَ. Allah made the earth, firashan, spread out, something spread out. So you can see here the employment of two maf'ul bihi in the same sentence because the verb requires it. And again, you may see it. So again, the most important point to note is your rafa, nasab, nasab. That is the key for you to unlock Arabic, inshallah. The pronoun as object. So far, we are focused on looking at the object as a noun coming afterwards. For example, here, I helped Hamid. I helped Hamid. But if we wanted to say that you helped her, for example, where the object was a pronoun, then we would have to use what's called an attached pronoun. Attached pronoun. Now, if you've been following our lessons, inshallah, book 1, we covered the attached pronoun. It's exactly the same set of pronouns. Again, those are the set of pronouns that can attach to an ism, fi'l, or harf. Now we're going to look at them being attached to a verb. We've already seen them being attached to an ism back in lesson number 9 and 10, where they attached to become mudaf ilayhi. And in lesson 7 and 8, we did huruf of jar, where they became majroor because they attached to harf of jar. And of course, lesson number 12, I believe, if I remember correctly, Inna and her sisters, they attached to the harf of nasab, so they became mansub. Here we're going to look at them coming attached to a verb. Attached to a verb. And they, of course, will be mansub. Why? Because they will be maf'ulun bihi. And therefore, these attached pronouns play a very important role in the language. I believe, from what I've seen, you cannot pass a single line of Qur'an, single line within the Mus'haf, where you will not find one, maybe two attached pronoun. And that is why they're very, very important to master. We've already done them in detail. We're going to now look at them being attached to verbs, inshallah. So the pronouns are, again, I repeat, this is a revision for what we did in book 1. There are two types, the detached pronouns. Detached pronouns are, and again, you should have memorized these by now. I did strongly recommend that you do so. In lesson number 5, book 1, I went through them. Huwa, huma, hum. Hiya, huma, hunna. Anta, antuma, antum. Anti, antuma, antunna. Ana, nahnu. So these are your 14 detached pronouns. They are always, always definite. All pronouns are definite. Lesson number 2, book 1. And then mabni, they do not change. Third, these ones, and this is the most important, they're always rafa. So you cannot put these pronouns after the verb. The sentence will not make any sense because they are rafa. And when you use a pronoun with an object, as an object to a verb, it cannot be rafa. Okay, rafa is the doer. So it has to be mansub. And therefore, these pronouns cannot be used. So you cannot have, for example, ja'ala huma afterwards, for example. That would be nonsensical in Arabic. Okay, so this cannot be our doer. So this kind of thing is not allowed. Why? Because this set of pronouns are always, always rafa or marfu'. Now, the other set of pronouns, which are the detached pronouns, attached pronouns, I should say, these are the ones that are only attached. They don't come on their own. They have to be attached to something after as a suffix. They're never a prefix, as a suffix. So at the end of the word they come, and they are hu, huma, hum, ha, huma, hunna, ka, kuma, kum, ki, kuma, hunna, I, na. Again, if you practiced lesson 7, 8, 9, 10, and also 12, and plus all the other lessons, you should have memorized this by now. So these are your attached pronouns. They only come as attached as a suffix at the ends of words. So please note that. And the things about them to note is, of course, they can connect to anything. They can connect to an harf, they can connect to an ism, they can connect to a fi'lun, all three. And they are definite, of course, and they do not change. There are some changes at the end, but that's phonetic. I'll cover that, inshallah. Don't worry, but it is not that changing due to i'rab. And they can be jar or nasab. Whenever they attach to a verb, they will be mansub. Why? Because it is maf'ulun bihi. And that is all you need to know as a brief summary of the differences between attached and detached pronouns. And they can attach to a verb. When they attach to a verb, they will be mansub on account of being maf'ulun bihi. Maf'ulun bihi. So the attached pronoun that is attaching is nasab, mansub. Why? Because it is maf'ulun bihi to the verb. So whenever we want to say a pronoun being the object, we have to use one of these depending on the pronoun that we want to use. So this sheet, inshallah, will give you the full summary of what you need to know about huruf. Again, a very complex, a lot of people get confused, but I hope this sheet on its own, inshallah ta'ala, will give you the summary that you need. So the attached pronouns can be nasab or jar, and these are the occasions when they are jar, and these are the occasions when they are mansub. And so if we did the example only with nasara, kept that as the verb all the way down, and we attached to that one of the 14 pronouns, you can see we will end up with the following chart. Of course, it could be nasara, nasaru, nasarat, nasarata, nasarna, nasarta, nasartuma, nasartum, nasarti, nasartuma, nasartunna, nasartu, nasarna. Could be any of them. If any of them has any of these attached pronouns to them, you will translate it in this way. So we're using nasara just to make it simple. Otherwise, we'd end up with 14 times 14 combination, and it would take a lot of time, and plus probably 5 or 6 screens just to cover those. So just to illustrate the example. So he helped him. Nasarahu. Nasarahuma. He helped them. Okay. Nasarani. He helped me. Nasarana. He helped us. That's the point I'm trying to get through, inshallah ta'ala. I hope this example will suffice to show you the variations that you're going to see. But in simple terms, it is the attached pronoun coming at the end as a suffix. That is your object. So these are the verbs that are conjugated. Again, I'm using the Nasara version here only, and I've gone through this in detail. So we're going to look at a few examples where we attach the attached pronoun to any of these 14 sighas. And please note 2 points. I did mention it before. This one ends with a sukun. So, and also we have got a special alif here. Few things happen to these. And also when we add the ya mutakallim, few changes that will occur. I'm going to show you those inshallah ta'ala now. So everything you need will be covered in this lesson as far as attaching pronouns are concerned. So let's use 4 illustrated examples to illustrate the point of having the doer and the object as pronouns. Again, I'm going to be using this sheet. I'm sorry it's a bit small, but I've shown it to you earlier, and you should by now be able to recognize the sigha very, very easily, inshallah. So in the first example, I'm saying nasara hunna. Nasara hunna. Nasara, you should be able to tell, is this form. So these, and I've attached the hunna to it. So what have I got here? I've got the verb. I've got my fa'il, which is huwa, mustatir, and I've got my maf'ul bihi. So what is the translation? He helped them. Them being, of course, feminine plural. Next example we have on the screen is she helped you. Nasarat kuma. Nasarat kuma. Of course, nasarat is number 4. So these, kuma is our attached pronoun. And of course, we have your fa'ilun, and the fa'il is here mustatir, and that becomes she helped you, maf'ulun bihi kuma, which is dual. Okay, dual, masculine, dual. Then we have the third example where we're going to say you, masculine singular, helped her. So of course that will be the anta version, which is here. So these nasarta, and then of course we add to it ha at the end. So nasarta ha, and again you can see the fa'ilun. You got your fa'ilun, which is anta, and we got our maf'ulun bihi, which is ha. So all of it that you've learned so far is coming together, inshallah ta'ala. And of course, lastly, we have nasartu ka. Nasartu ka. I helped you. Nasartu, the doer version. So these doer is ana, I should say. And this is the version that we need, number 13. So nasartu, I got my fa'ilun, I got my fa'ilun, and I've also got my maf'ulun bihi. I hope, inshallah ta'ala, all of this is now making absolute sense. And the reason why I went through all this pain of showing you all the bits and pieces is that you will not get confused. So the first thing you need to do is identify the sigha and then look for the attached pronoun, identify the attached pronoun. Otherwise, you will get confused. So please pay attention to these points, inshallah ta'ala. Do rewrite these down and you'll be able to retain the knowledge for a lot longer. And when you see them in the Qur'an or any Arabic text, you'll be able to understand what is going on. Few changes that occurs to the attached pronouns due to phonetic reasons. They're not the actual change of the word, but phonetic reason we add bits and pieces. So the first one is with the ya mutakallim. Now, if you remember when we did this in book 1, lesson 7, 8, I mentioned that the ya mutakallim always prefers to have a kasra before it. So wherever you add it, you need to have a kasra before this ya, or the ya in general, it prefers that. So it's a natural flow of sound. So here I want to say nasara, then I want to say ya. Nasara, it can't be said. So what happens in Arabic? A noon of protection. Noon luqaya comes at the end. So this is the noon. And it's that noon that takes the kasra. And therefore we have nasarani. So please, the noon is an addition to help you to attach the ya to the verb. Otherwise, the verb would be forced to take a kasra, and verbs don't like taking a kasra at the end as a general rule. So kasra is not in verb as the last letter, the haraka on the last letter. Please note that. So nasarani, okay. So here, he helped, huwa is my doer, mustatir. He helped me. Ya is the actual object. The noon is there for protection. Next, we have the female teacher helped me. So nasaratni, nasaratni. Okay, nasaratni al-muallimatu. Nasaratni al-muallimatu. Of course, you read it together, nasarani al-muallimatu, but that's a different issue. So we go back here, al-muallimatu, and ya as my doer, the noon is there for protection. And the next example we have nasartani, you, anta, ta, ni, ya mutakallim. You helped me. So when joining with ya, we need to make a note that the verbs, this happens in the mudare, also you'll see it in the amr, the noon of protection will come in to help in the pronunciation and easy and correct reading. Next, we have the sigha, which if you'll recall is sigha number 3, where we have this extra alif. This extra alif is for protection, it is not the pronoun. So we have nasaru, they helped, hamidan, that is your nasab, that is your object. But I want to say they helped him. So here, when I attach the pronoun who to the end of the verb, what happens? The alif is now removed. So there's no alif there. It is removed. It is no longer required. So this is nasaru who. Nasaru who. They helped him. Please note this alif will disappear when it comes to the attached pronoun being attached to it. Next is tum version. Nasartum. Now again, you note that this has got a sukoon. Sukoon. When we add the attached pronoun, we have you all helped Hamid. Nasartum Hamidan. Very easy. But if I want to say you helped him, then I have to put the ha at the end. Here an extra waw is added. Nasartumuhu. Nasartumuhu. Okay, Nasartumuhu. You all helped him. So these are the additions that you will see. They're not really changing the word. They're for phonetic reasons and making it easier. So just in case you were surprised with the noon and the waw and the alif removing, these are the reasons why why they do so when attached pronouns are attached to them. So let's conclude, inshallah, with a few very quick examples. Nasaraka, huwa is my doer, ka is the object. He helped you. Nasarathum, she helped them. Here is the doer, whom is the object. I helped you. Nasartu ki, please note ki is feminine singular. Nasarahunna hamidun, Hamid helped them. Feminine plural, hunna is the object. And nasaratkum, Maryam. Oh, sorry, I should have put Maryam afterwards. My apologies. Please note that change, inshallah. Apologize, I'm not sure how that missed out. Anyway, So Maryam helped you. Okay, you all. Maryam helped you all. Maryam is coming after the verb in the rafa, and that is why we know Maryamu, nasaratkum Maryamu. So please apologies for that. If you're writing it down, please do change it. So this is the ya, Maryamu, Maryamu. Alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal, we have come to the end of part 1, where we've covered the object in detail. We looked at the transitive and the intransitive verbs. We looked at more than one maf'ul bihi. We looked, of course, mainly at the noun. Now we also are familiar with the pronoun, with lots of examples, inshallah ta'ala. In the next part, we're going to cover a few more points, phrases coming in as maf'ul bihi, and also a few other points related to that, and also types of maf'ul. So this we'll cover in the next video, inshallah ta'ala. I hope and pray that you have benefited from this lesson, and I hope and pray, inshallah ta'ala, a lot of the confusion and questions that are coming to your mind as you're going through, or if you studied, or if you are still studying grammar in any way, these videos are helping you. Inshallah ta'ala, do feel free to make comments. Please restrict the comments to the lessons only. I will not be able to answer, translate text, or give detailed commentary on grammar rules by writing, because it takes ages. Please forgive me for that. But anything, any mistakes, anything that you see that can be improved, any suggestions, or even questions related to something I've said which is not clear, I'm happy to clarify in the comments. Again, I want to thank you for all your support and all your comments and feedbacks and du'as. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Do feel free to share and encourage others to also learn. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you with the very best in this world and the hereafter, for every single moment that you spend while trying to learn Arabic, to understand Qur'an, while connecting to the Qur'an, every line of Qur'an, every word of Qur'an, every letter of Qur'an. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you abundantly for that. Until the next video, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.